What you see here is the last 9 Disney films, and for them, it only gets worse because only one of these actually made a profit. Thor: Love and Thunder, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, The Little Mermaid losing $139 million, Strange World epic loss of $164 million, Lightyear an epic loss of $188 million, and in the theaters now, Elemental, and of course, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, currently sitting at -300. It'll probably end up north of -200. We don't know yet. It just takes time, but it is not going to make a profit, as it was beaten out July 4th by a Christian-based film called Sound of Freedom, and it is a fantastic film. And the reason why we're doing this video is to show you why these films don't make any money. We're going to go over a spreadsheet right here and go over these films one by one for the most part and identify, yes, they're woke, and yes, it's making Disney go broke, literally.
And that's a good thing.
And here's the thing, guys, when you have this many of failures in a row,
someone needs to answer for this.
There's just no other way to look at it. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is an epic disaster, and we're gonna go through this. This spreadsheet here, I actually give credit in part to a YouTuber by the name of VALIANT Renegade. I'm going to leave a link to his video below. You can reference that. I'm going to reference some of his screens as well, because he identifies certain elements in the box office that I think you should understand. We had a spreadsheet before that we used for many years. It looks similar to this, and it's accurate to a point because you can essentially double the production budget to basically get whether or not you're profitable or not. But when you get down to some granularity for movies such as Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we'll actually see that's actually right now losing money right around $12 million, and we'll get into that in this video as well. All right, so let's get into this video. Before I get into the actual movies and why I feel they aren't performing very well, and believe it or not, the answer is actually pretty simple, I'm gonna go over the spreadsheet and just go over this formula. Again, check out VALIANT Renegade. He explains this very, very well, and I took his formula and put it into my version of the spreadsheet. On his site, he has the same information, it's just presented a different way. I kind of combined a lot of his information into here. So don't get too caught up in the weeds. If you don't understand, check out his video. He explains it, but the concepts are the same. So here we go here to the right here. We have the movie title. We have the name of the studio, in this case, Disney. The date it was released. I grabbed these totals from Box Office Mojo, the domestic gross and international gross. That's pretty easy to go with. However, the column F here is a column with the international gross minus China, because the way it works with these particular companies, with the studios, when they produce a movie, let's say I'm making a movie and I want someone to distribute it for me, and I want that to go to a theater, and the theater has to get paid. So how does that work? So the theater, essentially, if it's in the United States, they're going to get about 45% of the profits. They're going to send 55% back to me. So if I give them $1, I would get back 55 cents if the movie grosses $1. I'll get back 55 cents. They'll keep 45 cents. That's if it's in America. If it's internationally, it's around 43% that I would get back, and they will keep the remaining amount. If it's China, it's actually 25% that I would keep, and they would keep 75%. And so that's the ratio. And so it's more important for a movie to gross domestically because the studio will get more money from a percentage wise. And so if you look here at the total gross here, you'll see I just basically take the domestic gross, the international gross, I'd subtract out the Chinese gross. So we have that here. So I use it as a separate factor when I actually take out the percentages for that. It's called a rental, by the way, when you take out the actual percentages to go back to the studio, it's called a rental. And so then we take the total gross from that, and then the production costs are something that you get from the studio. They let you know how much they are using for casting, for effects and everything in terms of making the film. However, that isn't everything, because there's something called global P&A, or global print and ads. And Disney, on the average for big ticket items, run about $150 million per film. This is print ads, this is media, this is internet marketing, all of that stuff that goes into that doesn't play into the actual production cost. It's added to it. Some films are less depending on what they are. So for instance, if you look at the Sound of Freedom, they don't have much production cost. I think I gave that around $500,000 for that. It's certainly not going to be $150 million because Sound of Freedom is using word of mouth, they're using crowdsourcing and everything like that. And so the total cost comes into here. And then here, finally, I want to show you this ratio here for the total rentals. If you look at the actual formula here, you'll see D2 is going to be domestic, F2 is going to be international, and G2 is going to be China. That's how we're doing that. So we're taking those columns and we're figuring it out on the fly. Now, on the YouTuber, on the Valiant Renegade, he breaks it out separately and has separate spreadsheets. I put it all in here. It's embedded into it. But you can see the formula here as it works. So it's essentially the same thing that he did. And then we take all of that and we subtract the total cost from the total rentals, and you get whether that the movie is profitable or not. And this is really interesting. If you double it up, like I've done it in the past, you essentially get that. But if you double it up, you'll see that you think or that Guardians of the Galaxy would have made money. Not exactly. And so this gets more granular into the actual numbers. And so I like this approach better because you have more control over it and you can look at it a little differently. Because if a movie does really well in China, it doesn't mean it's making money because you're only getting 25% of the profit. So that's why it's really nuanced, and the medias and the shield media particularly use these numbers and hide it from the public if they want to put forth a narrative of a movie doing better than it really is. But this spreadsheet here shows you that Disney right now, as the recording of this video, is now at a negative $1.2 billion. And I will say this will get better because some films are still in the theater. So this number will go down and down and down depending on how well Elemental does and how well Indy 5 does from here on out. So this number here will eventually come down to about 1 billion to about 1 billion. Somewhere in there, I think it'll fall in terms of their losses, but still, that is a lot of money to lose for a studio. All right, now I want to give my take as to why these films are not doing very well at the box office.
Wait, seriously?
And instead of going by each one and going through it, I'm going to give a basic generic reason as to why. And if you go back and look at a video I did late last year, about 9 months ago from the recording of this video, the 4 reasons why The Little Mermaid backlash is not racism. And essentially, it dealt with pragmatic reasons, but one of the reasons of those 4 was that it was woke, and the last one was because it was Disney. Let's start with woke, and woke is the big thing here. What is woke? Well, that can be anything, but for the most part, it's pretty much socialism and communism. It's basically creating division so people can be separated, and that way they can be divided and fight amongst themselves so that we can have all this classism and stuff and have power grabs and all that sort of thing. Ultimately, that's what it is. It divides and you can conquer once you're divided. It's more deep in that, but there's a good video that I have on that with Chad O. Jackson from the films Uncle Tom and Uncle Tom 2. We talk about wokeism. His definition is fantastic. I'll leave a link there below. But wokeism is just a huge reason why. But the second reason I mentioned just a minute ago was because it is Disney. If you go back and look at what Disney's done over the past 4 to 5, 6 years, they have just demolished their trust that they had with the public. Going through Lucasfilm, going through Pixar, going through just the live action pictures, everything. People are just tired of it. If you look at the attractions, the resorts and the parks, the theme parks, their attendance is not what it used to be. And so they're having problems all across the board. You see Bob Iger going and coming back, and you see Kathleen Kennedy doing things and people wanted her to leave. Kathleen Kennedy is the head of Lucasfilm. It's just a mess. And people, when they see Disney, just don't care. So movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, which may not be woke, it has Disney tied to it. So they may, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna watch this. And so those are the reasons that no matter what Disney does, their brand is utterly destroyed. And ultimately, I think that's why it is, in a nutshell, as to why these films are so bad. Now, of course, there's other agendas in there that I won't discuss here. Movies like Elemental, movies like Lightyear. I think you know what I'm talking about. People don't want to go to theaters to see that. They want to just enjoy a good time and not be indoctrinated by some social agenda. Now let's talk about the current numbers for Sound of Freedom from Angel Studios. It was released on July 4th, and right now its domestic gross is $27 million. No international money yet. And we have no China money. But yet that means that if you say that it's going to have about $500,000 global P&A cost and at a $14.5 million production cost, right now it is sitting at break-even numbers. $1,000 essentially is where it sits based on these numbers. So it's basically broken even already. I was saying early on that if it made $30 million, that's kind of sort of the magic number. That's about a $1.5 million profit level, and everything on top of that would be just gravy. But this movie here is doing exceptionally well. Here are the numbers here from the July 4th. And if you go onto the dailies for today, it's still grossing about $5 million a day north of that. And we'll see what happens at the end of the day. But right now, $27 million, domestically speaking, is absolutely fantastic. And The Sound of Freedom is a film that I think everyone should see. In fact, I made this clip yesterday. Check it out. My wife and I recently saw the film Sound of Freedom. And while it's a wonderful film, and yes, you should definitely see it, I feel there are 3 takeaways that can happen if we all pitch in to make this project work and be successful as much as it can. The first one is that we can raise awareness of what's happening to our kids around the world. This is a horrible atrocity and it must be put to an end. The second thing is we can actually help to rescue the kids. How do we do that? Well, we can support companies that go in and do that, and we can put pressure on governments that allow that to happen on their soil. For instance, the US is the #1 destination for this disgusting crime. And on that same note, we can actually help to put these people behind bars or worse by restoring justice, because God's children are not for sale. And if you like what you saw here, please check out this video right here. I'm sure you enjoyed this one as well.